All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer, where we take complex financial and technological shifts and break them down so they actually make sense. Today, we're looking at something absolutely monumental. The U.S. Senate Banking Committee just held a vote, and well, while it might not be screaming across every mainstream headline right now, it is a literal tectonic shift for global finance. We're talking about the Clarity Act. If you want to understand the future of institutional capital, you absolutely have to pay attention to what this legislation actually does. Because honestly, it's not just some minor compliance rule, not at all. It is a complete, ground-up redefinition of the global financial architecture, and it impacts absolutely every single player in both traditional and digital markets today.
Listen to this quote from our source material. Financial history is being written right now in silence. I want you to really let that sink in for a second. This isn't just internet hype. This is structural reality. This silent vote fundamentally changes the rules of the game. But to truly grasp the sheer magnitude of this event, we have to look backward for just a moment to see what exactly was holding everything up.
Section 1. The systemic blockage. The wall keeping traditional finance out.
We often think that traditional finance is just, slow to adapt. But the reality is much more complex and honestly way more frustrating for the institutions involved. Just look at the stark contrast here. On side A, you've got colossal, almost unimaginable demand. For years now, major banks, massive investment funds, and wealth managers have desperately wanted to enter the crypto space. They aren't blind. They've perfectly understood the incredible technological value of blockchain and digital assets. But then, look at side B. Standing right in front of them was a massive wall of extreme legal risk. It wasn't a lack of capital or a lack of desire keeping them out. It was the fact that there was zero clear legal framework. No strict rules for auditing, and literally no protections for their billions or even trillions of dollars in liquidity. The legal risk of facing regulators was just way too extreme for these massive entities to expose themselves publicly. They were completely trapped.
Moving on to Section 2. The impact of the Clarity Act. The earthquake that shattered the wall. This historic vote, it's the earthquake that just completely pulverized that blockage. All of that institutional hesitation vanished the exact moment this text advanced. The legal fog is lifted, bringing definitive, undeniable regulatory certainty to the market. Let's look at exactly how it does this, because the surgical precision of this legislation is absolutely crucial. First, it establishes without the slightest ambiguity who regulates what. The jurisdictions of the SEC and the CFTC are now formally delimited, so no more guessing games. We now have rules with surgical precision for the custody of digital assets. We have inflexible, rigorous standards for listing. And perhaps most importantly, there is now a formal regulatory framework detailing exactly how these digital assets integrate directly into the classic banking system. The hesitation is gone, guys, because the legal blueprint is finally here.
Section 3. Three dominant infrastructures, the beneficiaries of the new landscape.
With this brand new regulatory paradigm, the market dynamics reverse abruptly. This elevates three very specific digital assets into a dominant strategic position that absolutely no one else occupies today. First up is XRP. It's crucial to look objectively at the foundations of this tech. As our source points out, XRP is not just a digital currency, it is a true cross-border settlement infrastructure. It was engineered specifically to move massive volumes of capital between countries in mere seconds. And here's the detail that changes everything. The network rigorously respects the ISO 2222 norm. That's a financial messaging standard that is absolutely non-negotiable for modern global finance. Plus, this network is already used and tested by banking institutions. So, that legal framework just adopted in Washington, it's the exact definitive legal validation this network has been waiting for in the shadows, ready to operate at full capacity without any more constraints.
Next, we look at Hedera. The approach of this network, literally from day one, has been fundamentally oriented toward institutions. This isn't some experimental tech project run out of a garage. Hedera is directly governed by a council uniting global industry giants. We're talking about massive entities like Google, IBM, and Boeing. The entire system was designed, coded, and structured for total compliance with the highest enterprise standards. So why does this matter so much right now? Because when these immense financial institutions prepare to enter the market, they don't need to waste time discovering or auditing the viability of Hedera's product. They already trust the governance, they recognize the massive players involved, and the network already meets their exact demanding security standards right out of the box.
And finally, XDC. The fundamental utility of XDC caters to a colossal economic sector, international trade finance. Look, global commerce demands immediate liquidity and infallible ledgers.
But the biggest growth vector highlighted in our source material regarding XDC is the massive tokenization of real-world assets, or RWAs. Essentially, this means integrating the value of the physical world onto digital networks. With the historic adoption of the Clarity Act, this highly specific segment just got its definitive legal green light. XDC now has the sovereign authorization to safely and massively integrate with global traditional finance.
So, pulling this all together, notice how this summarizes the rule of three we are witnessing right now. XRP owns cross-border settlement with its absolute ISO 2022 compliance. Hedera owns the enterprise-grade network space, backed by its global governing council of titans like Google and IBM. And XDC owns international trade finance and the tokenization of real-world assets. The common denominator here? Absolute institutional readiness. They aren't scrambling to adapt to the new law, they were literally built for it.
Section 4. The asymmetrical advantage. Technology anticipating the law.
Our source notes, the alignment between sovereign technology and institutional law is now total. We really have to analyze this situation with absolute pragmatism, entirely stripping away all the usual noise of the markets. The reality is that grand institutional capital never ever moves randomly. It obeys extremely strict risk directives and constraints. But guess what? The law has finally caught up. The political reality has shifted, and the technology is sitting there perfectly aligned, ready to absorb what comes next.
Which brings us to Section 5, the imminent flood, the wave of capital.
Because here's the thing about institutional capital. When that massive wall of legal risk is finally erased, that capital does not move slowly. Trillions, yes, trillions with a T. It moves massively, and it moves incredibly fast. It will immediately rush into the infrastructures that are legally and technically ready to receive it. Trillions of dollars of liquidity. I actually want to pause here for a second so you can really visualize the sheer scale of this. The single, solitary obstacle keeping these trillions of dollars out of the digital asset market has just been officially removed by the US Senate. The underlying wave is arriving. The source material makes it abundantly clear. This isn't just a possibility, it is imminent, it is highly structured, and as of this vote, it is totally, unequivocally legal.
So, faced with these new, concrete, factual data points, surface-level analysis just isn't going to cut it anymore. Surface-level analysis stops at the political news of the vote. Deep analysis, it looks at the actual pipes, the specific networks like XRP, Hedera, and XDC, where this unprecedented wave of capital will inevitably transit. The only question that remains today is whether you have anticipated a movement of this incredible magnitude. As our source powerfully concludes, and as I will leave you to ponder today, is the portfolio positioned? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep analyzing and keep looking beyond the surface.